Hello, everyone. This is Rolo, the Puerto Rican Pistolero, and this is episode 9 of Rolo's Rants. We are live here on YouTube and on Rumble as well. So if that is your preferred platform of choice, then you can go ahead and check us out there on Rumble. So I see we've got 2 people there already. We've got 22 here on YouTube. We're going to talk about a couple of different things this evening. I will go through the housekeeping because I need to interact with you guys more. I know I get ADD with the chat sometimes, so I'm going to make an effort to go there. So I'll try to go on, talk about less subjects, but we'll go more deeply into them. So big things this week. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the Twitter drama today. But for me, I think the big takeaways are obviously we've got the bill regarding TikTok going through Congress. We have everything that was going on this week with the continuing saga of the Sweet Baby Inc. and how there's ties with the Department of Homeland Security and things like that. It's gotten out of control. I think that for highlighting kind of the necessity of the Second Amendment, we're going to go through the crisis in Haiti as well. And if we've got time, we'll talk about more. But let's get this party started. Let's check out the chat. We've got a lot of you very active, very early here. I see Comic Misconceptions, Dirty Jersey, Cerberus, Rebel Scum, Loquacious, Greg the Goblin dropping the 20 right away. Thank you, Greg. We've got Hypnotic, my Puerto Rican brother from another mother. Ember Dragon, Andrew Wordna. We've got CDV himself, Charles Devane, Nagardnall, Gabriel, JM the Elite Fan, Chris. I think we got everybody here so far. Thank you all for coming in. We've got One Car Fast dropping in there. So it is good to see you all. We have more than 30 people so far. So I think, I think it's pretty crazy how things have gone this week. Obviously, the drama today is what was going on with Trump and Twitter. I kind of don't even want to discuss that one because to me it's not even worth it. I think it's pretty obvious. But that's something that they'll try to use with the bloodbath comment, throughout the way. But I think you listen to the full context of the clip on there on Twitter. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure that you'll see that one mentioned all week since it was a Sunday special pretty much. But I do actually want to talk, and it's not something that I've discussed that much because I'm probably going to end up, just for some housekeeping, I am probably going to end up splitting this channel. And I'm going to put Rolo's Rants on its own channel. So it'll become Rolo's Rants. Puerto Rican Pistolero will be where all the gaming streams exist here on YouTube. Kick and Rumble won't change. So Rumble's going to have everything. And Kick is only going to have gaming stuff. So that's pretty much how that'll be delineated. So when that channel split happens, I'll let you guys know. It might start with episode 10. We'll see. I've just got to do that. So it'll be the Salsa y Fuego channel that you guys know now. I'm going to try to switch that over to become Rolo's Rants. So it's just because the algorithm does not like having, I've noticed, especially the last few weeks, having the gaming and the political talk show here, especially since I've done so much more gaming streams than I have in the past on this channel. So I'll go ahead and do that, let you guys know how that, how that's going to work out and everything like that. So, and we'll link it here. Maybe I'll give it another week where we'll keep it here and then we'll flip over that one. I'll keep you guys posted no matter what. But I haven't really been talking about the Sweet Baby Inc. Stuff too much. There's a lot of people talking about it. But once we got to the point where we started seeing, I think the crisis is pretty self-explanatory. I actually want to play a video by, her name is Madam Savvy on Twitter. And I think that she's done one of the best jobs yet of really breaking this down. And so I kind of want to start with her and go from there. And then we'll go and talk about kind of, where I think that's going to go, how it's going to change. It's kind of like Gamergate 2.0 at this point. And yeah, it's crazy to see how far this has gone. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody as well. I'm obviously not wearing green. I totally forgot about it. The only green we've got here in our proximity is the Master Chief's helmet. I guess the rifle is technically green. You can't really tell because it's dark, but the top and bottom receivers of the AR-10. So I think that this is one of the most concise, especially for such a short video, explanations that I've seen of this so far. So yeah, of course, this is this is how it always is, right? We never choose the thing right. We never choose it correctly. All right, screen capture. Let's go. Boom, boom. So yeah, let's just watch her video real quick. It's 3.5 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and discuss it. I'll kind of stop it along the way, and we can comment on it and kind of some of the things that I think are really crazy here.
I know my threads are dry, so it's video and visual aid time. All information can be found on my X page.
So all credit to Madam Savvy here.
Making this. All sources are linked, and it is based off of publicly available information. This all started because a Sweet Baby Inc. employee attempted a harassment campaign against a Brazilian man who goes by Cabrutus, who made a curation list on Steam with publicly available information documenting the games that SBI has worked on.
So pretty crazy. If for those of you that aren't familiar with what's going on here and how this is blown up, it's pretty, or only know that you're hearing about it now that it's completely hit critical mass. Everybody's been talking about it for pretty much the last 2 weeks or so. It just started because some dude pointed out that this company, worked on these games and made a list on Steam, which is crazy that somebody was out there looking for this in the first place and that they ended up finding it. So this was kind of like a chance thing that it happened and that just blew up into this entire
wrote an article for Kotaku
entire crisis.
SBI and omitting information about how it started, claiming it was a harassment campaign against SBI. Dr. Cowart wrote a blog post through Take This Org, linking the Kotaku article. On the Take This Org website, they occasionally state they are funded by DHS. Take This Org has a partnership with
DHS being the, of course, Department of Homeland Security. So, so this is pretty crazy. What does the Department of Homeland Security have to do with gaming? Why is this going on? Where is this money coming from? And it's absolutely insane how kind of deep this rabbit hole goes, and what companies are willing to do really to go against their consumers. Now, Sweet Baby Inc. is a consulting firm, so they're not necessarily, they don't necessarily give a crap. They obviously work, they're subcontracted by other companies. They influence the work that those companies do, relating with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, they work from there. So obviously it's really affecting the companies that subcontract them and how their work is influenced because of this, and how DEI has basically permeated through all of the entire industry.
Middlebury College and Logically AI, a data scraping company who wants to redefine the fact-checking business. They are a British-born company who use AI to monitor election misinformation and had a hand in the 2020 USA election. As of 2 years ago, they are partnered with Facebook as a fact-checker. They are also India's #1 fact-checker according to Wiki. These three entities received $669,000 from a DHS grant for a 2-year research project to monitor extremism and terrorist recruitment through gaming communities, but Take This Org is not directly funded through DHS itself. Dr. Cowart is also part of the Extremism and Gaming Research Network, or EGRN for short. They, together with the Royal United Services Institute, received 317,000 Canadian from the Minister of Public Safety of Canada. Several of the EGRN individuals currently work for RUSI and have since 2021.
So see, even the Canadian government here is in on it. So Government of Canada announces funding to study potential for radicalization to violence across gaming platforms. News release. This is from just a few days ago. Today, the Honorable Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs, announced a federal investment of more than $317,000 to the Royal United Services Institute for Defense and Security Studies. For its partnership with the Extremism and Gaming Research Network, which seeks to better understand potentially harmful socialization processes on gaming and gaming adjacent This project platforms. This project will analyze data from across multiple online platforms to investigate how the formation of communities alongside gameplay has the potential to create environments conducive to radicalization to violent extremism. Through gender-based analysis, this study will examine how identities are formed for both individuals and groups of gamers and understand how misogyny can connect violent extremist ideologies across geography and culture on gaming and gaming adjacent platforms. So if you go here, let's check out their website here. So let's bring it up while we've got this going on, man. Their text is small and they use very light font. This is a poorly formatted website. Okay. So at the EGRN, we bring together world-leading counter-extremism researchers, practitioners, and policymakers together with the private sector to develop solutions for the exploitation of online gaming by terrorists and violent extremists, set up as a practitioner-led initiative in 2021 to counter new online harms and lead evidence-driven solutions. Today, the EGRN convenes over 50 members ranging from United Nations agencies to think tanks and private sector organizations. Through our partnerships, the EGRN is at the center of emerging research and analysis while impacting policy and tech design. We work to promote the realistic, non-stigmatizing research and programs with a clear focus on using gaming for good. By working collaboratively across academia and practitioners, we advise tech platforms and governments alike to help gaming communities become inclusive, diverse online spaces while curbing the impact of harmful online content. How we started. The EGRN was set up as an independent, self-led initiative in 2021 by practitioners and researchers who saw a need to fill knowledge gaps on the subject and build an evidence base for positive interventions. Over the first year of our existence, we've seen exponential growth, starting with a partnership between the Love Frankie Agency and RUSI, then growing with member support from the United Nations and GIFCT. Within a year, we have surveyed the state of research in the field to convene nearly all leading institutions in the countering and preventing of violent extremism, PCP/CVE space, and 3 presented our work to governments and the United Nations Security Council. We've also obtained substantial in-kind support from our members and startup funding from GIFCT, garnered significant interest from governments worldwide, and are implementing a multi-year research vision. Today, we continue to grow with new global partners from research and policy organizations to tech companies. The EGRN also links with gaming companies, UN agencies, and governments to counter potential misuse and to develop solutions that use gaming to foster resilient online communities. With the support of our members, supporters, and donors, we continue to study how gaming interacts with extremism, including through community creation and identity, how gender and culture play out in gender-adjacent studies or spaces, and how we can build more inclusive and resilient gamer communities across the world. There you go. That is quite interesting, isn't it? All right, let's see. A lot of people don't know I'm back. Well, let them know, Cerberus, that I am around. I'm not doing stuff with G&G these days, but I am here. So you can find me here and follow me on this channel, of course. This is where I've been focusing on. And you can find me doing gaming streams here. I'm doing at least 3 a week right now. So my schedule is every Thursday and Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. You'll typically see me playing a co-op game or multiplayer game. It's been Fortnite lately with my younger brother, Commander N. He's also on the Geeks and Gamers tabletop channel. And my father, the old man Pistolero, the OG. And on Saturday mornings, I've been doing single-player streams the last 2 weeks. So this has been BioShock 1. I'm going to continue with BioShock 2 and BioShock Infinite after that. And then we'll see what I do after that. And then we have this show on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Like I said, this show will probably split off into its own channel. We'll see, just because the algorithm is not liked, how different the content is here. So thank you, Rafter Man. So I may be on the Deep State radar, says Night Train. I'm just speaking the truth here, trying to speak truth to power. So let's go back to Savvy's video and continue on, because this is good stuff.
Through EGRN and its many members, there are current connections to policy advisory around the world and extremist research through the lens of gender studies. The co-founder says he's got current ties to the UN. Another member has spoken to the Affairs Select Committee and Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament. Another has spoken to the White House, and several of them to DHS and more. And the EGRN's first look into extremism in political movements and gaming communities was through Brazil. Ties to their government exist and may be ongoing. EGRN has individuals who currently work and who are employed with GIFCT, which is the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, which was started by Facebook, YouTube, Microsoft, and Twitter back in 2017. There are individuals tied to ISD, which is the Institute of Strategic Dialogue in Britain, where they state there is urgent need to build community trust and political consensus around extremism. Pre-existing ties exist through the EGRN to the World Bank, Facebook, various counterterrorism organizations, UNICEF India, and various other organizations with political ties. The ADL has a Belfer Fellow Funding Program, which is a program that advances the ADL's work by supporting groundbreaking research into online hate and harassment and implementing these projects to fight.
So Gary pointed out on his Twitter or X page about what was going on with the ADL, the American Defamation League. So let's actually bring that up as well, and we'll read that article to give you guys some context. I should have had that one saved and open, but let's bring it up here. Where was it? Oh, here we go. As digital spaces, online games should be regulated to address hate and extremism. It's vital for Congress to examine extremist radicalization in these spaces, and we're grateful to Representative Lori Trahan for leading this effort, an important piece to read. And we'll also go to Representative Trahan's she's written a lot of articles about this over the years and her own papers. So it's pretty illuminating. So we'll look at some of her work, because she's probably going to be somebody whose name that you're going to see a lot more as this goes on. And this is kind of something that we've seen over the years, and it's always interesting. Being in the gun community, anytime. Now, obviously, that's different. This is different, but there'll be some overlap here. Anytime that we see some sort of mass murder. And the perpetrator uses a gun, especially if it's a rifle or anything, a semi-automatic rifle or anything like that, an AR, AK. The media goes crazy. The left always wants to take away guns and institute some sort of assault weapons ban. The right always blames violent video games if the perpetrator is younger, so in their 30s or less typically. If they've ever played any video game, that's what they do. So you're always getting this kind of fight. Now, typically the left doesn't do that, but I can see now, because I think what's going on is that a lot of times as gamers, we're always in tune with online culture. So we go on forums, we're here in shows like this, we have our chats, we have Discord, we have any different gilded, any sort of different place where we can go and chat, we can talk. We have our own private rooms that we go into voice chat with one another when we play games. So we're very connected. We're savvy at finding information, and we're passionate about our hobbies. So even if we're in deep and we don't necessarily pay attention to what's going on in the greater world, which you should pay attention, because shit like this happens and you can get blindsided. So you always have to have constant vigilance. Eternal vigilance, I should say. But it's interesting, and I think that's why they're going after it, because we've seen that in gaming, that's really where a lot of the pushback in the culture war has been against woke culture. And I do want to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how I feel about all this. I know Asmongold he's had a few really good videos that came out this last week, kind of talking about distrust in the gaming industry. Especially with Western companies lately. So I thought he had an interesting take, and I'll go over that. But let's start with the ADL first. Let's go into this article. This is an editorial, so take it for what it's worth. Regulate toxic online video games the same as social media. Give me a second here. Excuse me. G-Webs, what's up? I feel like I haven't seen you in forever, Gun Websites. It is fantastic to see you. After years of paralysis, the U.S. and European Union have been moving to regulate social media platforms. Social platforms. The EU is taking tentative steps to enforce the new Digital Services Act, which came into effect for all online platforms on February 17th. Some states in the U.S. are trying to control how platforms do content moderation, and the Supreme Court is now considering the constitutionality of this regulatory foray. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate is edging closer to approving legislation that would compel online platforms to introduce additional child safety measures. But these efforts to rein in social media overlook the gargantuan online gaming industry. Video games comprise of the largest entertainment industry by far, grossing almost $200 million in revenue in 2022, more than the music and film industries combined. Today, online gaming sites offer far more entertainment. They're social platforms that channel user communication and enable networking and community building, as I pointed out. Discussion of harms in gaming historically have focused on fears about the content of the games themselves. However, the social environment of games is what actually poses significant threats to players' safety and well-being. Exposure to hateful speech is routine, while doxing, exposing someone's private identifying information, and physical threats are also common. So, I mean, again, this kind of goes into, I'm sure many of us here, I've looked at my channel's demographics. Most of my viewers are in the 25 to 34 demographic and 34 to like 45 demographic. And you guys are mostly dudes, like, let's be honest. This isn't something that's unusual to us. We've been playing Call of Duty. We've been playing Halo. We've been playing all these competitive games for decades now. Many of us, almost 3 decades or more. In some cases, my old man's been playing video games for like 40 years. So, you see all of this and you're like, people have always talked crap since the beginning of online gaming. There has been bullying. I'm not saying that it's good to talk shit to people, but because that's not how I was raised, but that's not how it works online. You're going to talk a lot of shit. You're going to tell people, your mom jokes. You're going to say some pretty foul stuff, and then you're going to get competitive. And a lot of times you're going to become friends with people if they're really good after they kick your butt and they talk crap. So, that the fact that they're talking about this, look, doxing is BS. You shouldn't dox anybody. That's always a weak ass move in my opinion, and that's something that we should stop. And you should be prepared for that kind of stuff. If you stream or anything like that, if you talk about controversial things, unfortunately, doxing is a real threat, something that we have to deal with every day. And it does pose a danger to a lot of people. We've had people get killed because of that. So that is serious. But talking crap, trolling people online, it is what it is. I don't think that's a danger. You're always going to find places where people say things that the government doesn't like, or maybe plot things and conspire. It is possible that people can conspire to do bad things and use different chat rooms to do that. That's been the way that it's been since the dawn of time. People used to meet in back rooms of taverns and exchange, paper messages underneath benches or any sort of, information, spreading of information. So this isn't uncommon, but to act like this is something that is so widespread that governments need to be concerned about it, I think it's kind of BS, and you're going to see more regulation of speech now. And that's what we see every time that there is some sort of platform where we have, freedom to congregate with one another. This is kind of how Occupy Wall Street, that entire thing, metastasized and became the way it was. Originally, there were a lot of conservatives and libertarians that were part of Occupy Wall Street, pushing against the BS corporatism. The Tea Partiers were there, pushing against taxes, the collusion and the corporatism between the major companies on Wall Street and the federal government. And agent provocateurs were basically thrown in there to inject identity politics. They pushed away the conservatives and the libertarians, calling them racist. And that's how that entire movement dropped. And they kept, people who are traditionally liberals, conservatives, and libertarians from uniting against a common cause. And this is often what happens here. So a lot of people online have obviously been brainwashed to believe certain things, certain ideologies, authoritarian ideologies, I would say. And, because half these people don't even know what socialism and communism really are. They just want they think that we can live in some sort of society that is, authoritarian, but they're still going to get everything that they want. So it's some sort of utopian, some utopian dream that doesn't exist and doesn't actually match anything here. At the end of the day, it is, the corporations and the government colluding and creating some sort of neo-fascism is really the closest thing that I can think of, to spread that authoritarianism. So while players, game makers, and members of civil society, let's go back. Exposure to hateful speech is routine, while doxing, exposing someone of acute concern is the mounting evidence that extremists and other bad actors take advantage of pre-existing toxic gamer culture to disseminate their hateful ideologies and unleash hate-based harassment. While players, game makers, and members of civil society are familiar with these problems, many companies and policymakers are only just beginning to address, or in some cases even acknowledge, these issues. And look, I go in further to this too. If you guys are, my parents always knew what was going on with me. You should pay attention to what your kids do. If you don't like them playing games or talking to people, then you can block people. You can turn off. Now, I think you need to know what your kids are getting exposed to. I think that they need to get some exposure to toxic people to learn how to deal with them, especially as they start getting older. Give them the context, make sure that they understand what's going on, so that they can handle that kind of conflict. But ultimately, it's up to you to navigate through this space and pay attention to what your kids are doing, the games that they're playing, the people that they're hanging out with. The government should not be the ones regulating that. It's like anytime if there's a predator or something on social media, posing as a minor to try to prey on your children. Those are things that you have to pay attention to. So I would argue that if you don't want your kids playing video games with people that are talking garbage, you check that out. Like, that's the way it is. I don't understand why this is so difficult for people. And I don't understand why, especially millennials and, now a little bit more Gen Xers, as they've gone into their 20s too, and they're having children, or Gen Zers, I should say, are afraid of disciplining their children or having some control. Look, when you're not 18, you don't have that sovereignty. That's just the way it is. So your parents have control over that stuff. They can put restrictions on the things that you do, and that's just the way that it is. And I think we need more responsible parenting. We've needed that for decades, but we need it more than ever. And that's really what is going to solve a lot of these issues. All right. Gaming companies and policymakers seem to be operating under a misconception about the rights to privacy and freedom of speech should apply online. The misconception stems from inadequate attention to the human rights on the side of the equation, that of victims of extremist hate, harassment, and violence. Again, there is also no place that exists. So let's say that you're getting bullied or harassed in school. It's much more difficult and more inconvenient to have to go to a different school and move away. And a lot of times we know that a lot of these schools don't take bullying seriously. If you fight back, you're the one that's going to get screwed. It's not like back in the day where, hey, you get into a fight and you kick somebody's ass. Like, a lot of times it's like, hey, it is what it is. If you didn't kill the other guy, you're fine. They'll let you get away with it. You've got a black eye and you're good to go. But online, you can block people. So if you're being harassed by people on the internet, you can continually block them. You can move out and not worry about this. Again, this is something that we need to teach, like basic online etiquette, and that it is okay to block people and ignore people. That's the beauty of the internet. Yes, we have exposure to way more bad actors. Absolutely. We see this every day. I have this conversation a lot that I mentioned. Is the world getting worse every day? Or is it that we see everything that's going on 24/7? And that's really what it is, that we can see everything that's constantly happening. And that kind of fills us with despair. Maybe things are worse today than they were 20 years ago, because now we have kind of a record of the last 20 years that we can look back on through the internet, and we can see if things have gotten better or worse. I do think in this particular case they have, societally, because of social media and how governments and corporations have finally learned how useful social media is for social engineering and for manipulating people's, habits and thoughts, and ability to publicly shame people. At the same time, we're able to communicate with one another. We're able to disseminate information. We're able to push back against a lot of the narratives, and that obviously bothers them. So this is really what the struggle that we're fighting with here. It really is for freedom of speech. And yeah, look, I mean, people are going to say bad stuff to you. That's it. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm not going to tell people they can't speak because they're saying things I don't like or things that may hurt my feelings. I'll just stop listening to them. And on the internet, it's great because I don't have to deal with it. In real life, I'll walk away a lot of times too. So these are the things that people need to learn. People need to grow thick skin with that, and they just need to get out of situations. If you don't want to get bothered by people, mute them. Don't go in that voice chat if you don't want to. Like, that's the way it is. I knew a lot of people at the time too that hated voice chat because they're like, man, I don't want to deal with these people, talking all this garbage all the time. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Or as you get older, you don't want to listen to like an 11 or 12-year-old kid, cursing you out. It's just annoying hearing a high-pitched voice like that, and you're just like, whatever, man. Like, I'm going to jump into my chat with my dudes and not even worry about this anymore. So, the tools are already in there in order to avoid these issues. So again, I don't understand why we need some sort of regulatory involvement here. If you know that somebody is using, Xbox voice chat or PlayStation Network or Discord to communicate criminal activity, that's fine. You can get a warrant. You can talk with those companies to see if you have evidence that that's how somebody's communicating to conspire. But this to me is pretty crazy, and I can see what direction they're going to try to go with this. Hate, harassment, and perpetuation of extremist ideology rooted in hostility towards specific groups stand in direct contradiction to the very notion of human rights, which are premised on the belief that all human beings have equal worth regardless of their specific characteristics or group membership. And practice exposure to extremist rhetoric and behavior in games has tangibly and sometimes devastatingly affected victims of harassment, intimidation, and occasionally violence. In the most severe cases, extremist radicalization through gaming inspires actions that violate individuals' right to life. The perpetrator of the 2019 Christchurch massacre in New Zealand used gaming chat rooms to engage in and seek support for his racially motivated extremist ideation. His gamification of the actual attack inspired subsequent shootings at Poway, California, El Paso, Texas, Halle, Germany, and Buffalo, New York, to name a few. In 2022, the gunman who killed... So see, again, this is now where you'll get both things here of Second Amendment and First Amendment being, looking to be restricted here. And really what we're dealing with is a mental health crisis overall. If people are so messed up that they would go online, look for validation. And this is something else that we need to realize too as individuals, that it's one thing to talk crap. You can't egg people on. So if you see somebody online that is talking about like actually going out and doing something, you shouldn't encourage it. I'm just telling you right now, you really shouldn't. We deal with, especially in the gun community, suicide prevention is always a big thing that we always try to do. And we want to give people kind of the opportunities. And a lot of things happen because, let's be honest, let's take the Parkland the Parkland massacre here, for example, that, made me a Second Amendment advocate and pushed me to get involved. There were, something like 39 instances between local, state, and federal law enforcement with this perpetrator and this murderer, and nothing was done before then. So we have existing laws in place to be able to root people out, look at these things, and honestly, most of the time, the government fails to enforce the laws that already exist. So implementing even more restrictions that are not going to be followed is just going to hurt individuals who are just living their lives and doing the right thing. So, this is something that, again, I think normal law enforcement means if somebody's planning to do something, That's how it is. And really, this comes down to our society. Why are people choosing to do bad things? Why? Why are there some people that go crazy and flip out and choose to do evil and terrible things? We need to find that out to try to prevent people from getting to that point. And yes, ultimately, we do need people who are willing to defend themselves using the Second Amendment instead of restricting people from their rights. Okay. In the last few years, we, along with researchers, in 2022, the gunman who killed 10 and injured 3 at a Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo noted that he probably wouldn't have been as nationalistic if it weren't for Blood and Iron on Roblox, a popular online game. Again, coming down to parents paying attention to what their kids are doing, who they're interacting with, if they're okay. Sometimes we're too hands off, especially, millennials and Gen Z parents. They want to be friends with their kids. They want to seem cool. How many like disgusting parents do we see online nowadays that are trying to create some sort of viral video with their children and try to establish that kind of cool factor relationship? You need to have as your kids get older, you can have that kind of friendship relationship. But when they're young, you do have to have that separation, that kind of discipline. But you balance out, that friendship so that your kids do trust you and tell you what they're doing. I was always honest with my parents with what I was doing because I did have a good relationship with them. I did respect them. I knew that if I messed things up, there would be consequences and discipline behind that. But at the same time, they had a good balance. They spent time with me. As you see, I have a good relationship with my father. We play video games together. That's something that we've done pretty much my entire life. And so I think it's important to have those relationships. Those relationships are more important than anything else. And I think it really affects everything. Everything is downstream of that. And again, if we do our jobs here and we take care of ourselves, we prevent, this type of regulatory involvement that we're looking at here. And this kind of what is going to be an authoritarian approach towards gaming, where we're going to have a nanny state essentially trying to permeate and look through everything that we do. And with gaming, it's particularly dangerous because a lot of these mechanisms obviously are all online. So you can imagine in the future, you can think of AI reporting services instead, where essentially if you use one of these platforms, they may add it to the terms of service that some sort of AI is going to be monitoring all communications at all times. Could already be happening. And they'll just auto-report whatever you say. And then at that point, you're in a really dystopian, society where, you're constantly being monitored. Anything that you say can and will be used against you. And that just seems pretty awful in my opinion. And I don't even think it's absurd to say that that's where this could go, because we know when the government gains more and more power, when people like this, the nanny staters essentially gain more and more power, they want to take even more. That's just how it is. In the last few years, we, along with other researchers, blah, blah, blah. However, actions on these recommendations has been stymied by the assumption of privacy that is given to players in public game lobbies and servers. In our view, this amounts to a distortion of the right to privacy and human rights generally, which should serve to protect not the perpetrators, but rather the victims of doxing, stalking, threats to life, and other abuse online. Again, if you're in a public gaming lobby, you can pretty much in almost every game that I've ever seen, if you're using their chat, mute an individual in the chat. If you don't like what they have to say, you don't do it. If you have kids that you think are too young to listen to people talking crap on the internet, then you don't let them use voice chat. It is pretty simple. Or take some time to play games with your kids, get to know your children, spend time with them. They're the most important thing that you have in your life. You should try to raise them correctly and spend time with them, get to know them, and they will turn out, 9 times out of 10, your kids will turn out okay if you raise them that way and you have interactions with them. There's too much hands-off child raising in our society. And on the opposite side, sometimes we have too much helicopter parenting, where it's like you have to have that balance. You really do. So kids do need to get some exposure, but at the same time, it's your responsibility to choose what they see and what they don't, and to teach them lessons based on what they learn or hear. That's what you got to do. It's not easy, but it's not going to work. Yeah, we've seen this before. Rebel scum with music, things like that. You always try to blame something else instead of blaming people, blaming society, raising people better, and taking some personal responsibility here. Online games nominally fall. Regulators should consider online games fair game for regulation. Indeed, it is unclear why games are typically excluded from the same regulatory approaches that apply to social media, since online multiplayer games are social platforms. Online games nominally fall within the scope of the Digital Services Act, and the regulations enforcers should ensure that game companies comply with its extensive requirements, including publishing human rights risk assessments, removing illegal content, countering disinformation and extremism, issuing transparency reports, and providing significant data to vetted independent researchers. This law provides a significant regulatory push for game companies to put in place responsible business policies and practices. Similarly, when considering online platform regulation and enforcement, U.S. policymakers, including legislators and federal agencies such as the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, should explicitly include game companies within their scope. When talking about the safety of the internet, especially the safety of children on the internet, there's no more important place than digital playgrounds. Game makers, policymakers, researchers, and advocates all share the common goal of making play as safe and enjoyable as possible. It's time to open these conversations and stop ignoring the $200 billion elephant in the room when it comes to regulating social spaces. Mariana Olaisola Rosenblatt is a policy advisor on technology and law at the Center for Business and Human Rights at New York University's Stern School of Business. All right. I obviously disagree with this again. You're talking about playgrounds. Look, in the past, my parents let me go out alone at night, stay out until like 8 o'clock or something when I was a kid, or 7, 8 o'clock, come home before it's dark, go out there. But they would always try to know where I am at and all this stuff. This is what you have to do. So to me, it's no different than when you let your kids go out. Like, you pay attention to where they are, or you go with them to the playground, you watch so somebody doesn't kidnap them and take them away. It's kind of the same thing. If they're online and you can't supervise what they're doing, you have to make some sort of means that you can find out and have that relationship. Yes, kids are always going to hide things from you. They're always going to do things that you don't want them to do. You did them too. You turned out okay. There's a balance for all of this stuff, and the onus is on this. We don't want a nanny state. The government cannot raise children the way that you can. There are a lot of bad parents out there. There is no doubt about that. This is something that we need to improve. Our society is jacked up right now because, again, we as individuals, as parents, we don't take personal responsibility anymore. We raise our kids like they're wild animals, and we don't pay attention to these things. And then the consequences of other people's bad behavior means that those of us, the vast majority of people that actually do the right thing and that, can balance, talking some garbage on the internet with, hey, we're all cool, man. Like, it's all good. We're the ones that ultimately get punished. This is always what happens. So regulate your kids. I wouldn't put, kids on the internet early anyway. Again, why are you doing this? So if your kids are playing online, they should not be having voice chat as far as I'm concerned until they get, like they're a teenager, unless you know who they're playing with. If you want to play with them or set up the voice chat with friends that that's fine. But playing with randos, I don't know. It's weird. It just doesn't make any sense to me. This is something that we're all still trying to figure out. We're going to get the repercussions of doing all this in the future, but ultimately it's up to personal responsibility. Man, I can't believe that this topic, we incorporated a lot here. So I've almost been going on an hour rant with this. And again, this isn't something that I've really been talking too much about. And look, this from a 3.5-minute video, I've been able to turn this into 50, like an hour-long discussion.
Online spaces. In 2021, one of the EGRN members was a receiving member of the fund. The ADL itself, on the website, states that they will work with them to advance their research into online extremism. The ADL has come out recently as well.
So let's see. Dr. Constance Steinkuehler. Dr. Constance Steinkuehler, professor of informatics at the University of California, Irvine. Her project will examine how online games normalize toxicity and extremism among adolescents and young adults ages 13 to 25. Steinkuehler researches the cognitive and social aspects of online multiplayer games and esports. Current projects include studies of teenage boys and gameplay, parenting, and video games, and impacts of the North American Scholastics Esports Federation High School Esports League. Steinkuehler formerly served as senior policy analyst under the Obama administration in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, advising on games and digital media, and she founded the Higher Education Video Games Alliance, a national network of game-related programs. The Belfer Fellowship Program is possible due to the continued generosity of the Robert Belfer family. ADL Center for Technology and Society will work with the new fellows as they pursue research in previously unexplored areas. The fellows will also augment ADL's ongoing research efforts to help quantify and qualify online hate in a variety of social media sites, gaming platforms, and other online communities as ADL continues to work on multiple fronts to make the online spaces less hateful. The fellows' research will expand upon this expertise and activity.
Using the exact same language as these groups, taking interest in extremism through video games. My research has only begun, and every paper I read, I find a new connection to draw to. This is only taking into account a few members of the EGRN, so I am certain there will be more to discover. This is the fastest summary I can come up with for now, so please check out my threads on X if you'd like a detailed breakdown and to see the information yourself. Thank you for your time and have a good day.
So there you go. Shout out to Madam Savvy with that awesome breakdown. I will provide a link so that you guys can also...
I know my threads are dry, so video and visual.
Also check that out for yourself as a quick primer if you want to get somebody caught up to this and what's been going on. I think that really is one of the best, most concise summaries that we've seen so far of the entire Sweet Baby Inc. Story, and even seeing these crazy connections. I mean, the fact that we're seeing that the Department of Homeland Security was involved with this, with giving grants, is pretty crazy. And I think that it just shows kind of the power of how important gaming really has become to society, that governments are becoming afraid of these platforms really at this point. Yes, the Anti-Defamation League. Yes, you're correct. The ADL. So it was over here that we linked it. So yep. So let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. I've seen a lot of activity. We got at Victorium. We have no mods. Victorium spamming is off the charts on the DW on the Daily Wire chats. Man, yeah, the thing with Matt Walsh and all that stuff has been crazy. The back and forth. If I took a shot every time somebody called Jeremy gay or and he's on a chat, I'd die of alcohol poisoning. JM the elite fan. Those who trade liberty for safety deserve neither. Rebel Scum says we have no mods in the DW chats. We finally got Jeremy to play Helldivers, and people were super chatting bad advice, like telling him to always reload. That's funny. 18 but living at home should have rules also, says Confucius. If they don't like the rules, kick them out. Well, hey, that's definitely true. Rebel Scum says I experienced bullying and harassment last weekend on a Rumble chat. No mods in the chat and no block button in Rumble. That is a problem there too on online threads. I can agree with that. So that's something that we can work on. I think, yeah, having being able to mute people, I think, is really useful, and being able to block people. I think you should be able to do that in chats if you just don't want to see things. I guess you can give people rules for what they can see in the chat. Would be good too. I don't think that those are bad things if people don't want to see it, and I think that goes a long way too to preventing regulation, because you kind of regulate things yourself. Now, and I think, that should be the way that it is, right? You should be able to self-regulate, see things. If you don't want to hang out with certain people or listen to what certain people have to say, you shouldn't be forced to do it. And I think that's totally fine. But what we're seeing here really is the insanity. I think seeing how games journalism once again is coming to the rescue of these kinds of policies tells you a lot. We've been seeing too much in gaming lately that has been affected by DEI. Whether it is, Mary Jane's character in Spider-Man 2, or anything that we've seen, in any other games lately. Angerboda in God of War, And there's, a ton of other examples. The defeminization of a lot of female characters, making them look a little bit more masculine, injection of pronouns. Now, it's something that we see and people don't trust. Unfortunately, it's gotten to the point where we have seen, I think this is one of the worst things that's probably happened. We've seen in the past that we've had a lot of amazing male and female protagonists and or minority protagonists, I should say. So in video games. So, obviously we've had Lara Croft for decades now as an example of a strong female character. Zelda's always been a great character, especially when she becomes Sheik. Amazing. So we have examples of this throughout history and throughout gaming. And, we push all those characters away because certain people on the internet are angry that these characters are idealized and look better than we do. I mean, the whole point of video games has always been to drive that fantasy, the power fantasy of being somebody else that you're not. It really is. It is all about that. And, I don't understand why people want to remove that, or being better than you are, or being, a different character, or even looking at, good looking characters in a video game. Kind of an idealized view of the world, non-realistic in a lot of cases. So I don't understand why people want this homogenization, why they want to destroy that, why they want to make gaming more like the real world. They are miserable in their own skin, a lot of these people, and they want to spread their misery to everybody else. That's really how it feels. So it's like, I am unhappy with my things that are going on, so I'm going to break everything that everyone else uses until everybody is just as miserable as I am. And that's a horrible take. You should never do that, feel that way. I've been through misery and depression in my life, and I never wanted anyone else to go through what I was going through. That's a selfish perspective, ultimately. And it's a perspective of entitled individuals who ultimately are spoiled in this society and don't want any adversity to overcome. That's really what it is. And it sucks that we have to pay the consequences of it, because ultimately people who are strong, stoic, mature, they don't complain. We just deal with crap. Like, somebody bothers you, you kick their ass in COD, or you leave the room, or you mute them, or whatever, or you move on somewhere else and you don't hang out. It is what it is. That's how you deal with this kind of stuff. So it's so weird, the hypocrisy that we see throughout all of this. And if you go to, I think Asmongold had a video on wokeness in video games, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And I don't think his perspective was wrong on this, kind of comparing the how Eastern and Western gaming companies are, and that anytime with a Western company comes out with something, it's immediately presumed to be woke. Like, it does not matter what's going on. If you've got certain types of characters, the game is going to be considered woke, because we have such a lack of trust over the last few years with what Western gaming companies have done to us, that we're conditioned to believe that everything is going to be bad no matter what. Even though in the past, we've seen characters that are quote unquote diverse in movies and in all entertainment, ones that we love. It's almost as if the forces of progressivism and wokeness have pushed us so far that they've almost erased those characters. So even when we see anybody else, like, we immediately assume like this is going to be woke. Maybe there will be a game one day that has a modern game that, you play it and you're like, oh yeah, well, there's like a female protagonist, but it's not woke at all. Like, you just play it, just happens to be a badass chick. Or vice versa. Or, any game that you can create your own character, you are who you are. So you can make them look however you want. And so that's never an issue. So I mean, I just feel like this is what's gone down here, and it's a shame, because now we're always going to assume the worst, and it sucks. It sucks that that's how we have to be. They don't, it doesn't have to be that way. It really does suck. And again, games, we really need to go back, and I think this is why Helldivers is actually a great example. And, the story of Helldivers basically getting rid of everyone. And Yeah, Bohemian Grove cult, man, don't even get me started down that path. Warsaw Patriot. It is there is an injection of certain things in entertainment and trying to push people towards kind of this cultish mentality that a lot of the elites have. I don't doubt that that would be true. We know that Epstein on his island, there's like a temple to Moloch and things like that. So that's crazy. I'm not going to go down. That's not the tangent that I'm ready to go down right now. But yes, that is definitely something valid that you see out there, and different connections in the entertainment industry that are pretty disturbing, and within the elites and politicians that kind of run our society, for better, for worse. So, you're going to, I think we need to get back to going to Helldiver. Sorry, now I'm getting my tangents are all converging. It was refreshing what the developers did by basically booting people out in the forums that were talking politics. So they're like, we don't inject politics. The politics that exist within this game are defending a super Earth's, a democracy, managed democracy, and that kind of joke there, and playing into the Starship Troopers-esque meme. So I really do appreciate that, because games are all about escapism. It's all about having fun, ultimately. And it really is infuriating that we have these people that want to inject their realities into a game. And then you just wonder to yourself, see, it really does come down to selfishness and jealousy when it comes to a lot of these things. Because think about how arrogant and selfish you have to be, that you want your identity, you to be represented in a game that millions of other people may potentially play. Like, why does it have to be yours? Why can't it just be the vision? When we watch movies, we can't choose what the characters look like. We accept it. And throughout history, for decades, we've had plenty of movies with characters of all different races. And if a movie is good or bad, we judge it on the merits of, what we think of the movie. A lot of times the cast can be, the race of the character is secondary unless it has to do with where those characters are from. We're talking about ancient Egypt, we're going to see a bunch of Egyptians running around. That's the way it is. If we're talking about Africa, there's going to be black people there. If we're talking about Japan, we're going to see Japanese people there. Like, that's just the way it is. If we're doing a Viking movie, it's going to be, Scandinavian white people. There's nothing crazy about this. And, we used to never really question this, and we would accept characters that are cool. Like, everybody loved Blade growing up. Who did not want to be Blade and be a badass? And it didn't matter that you weren't black. Blade is a badass character. How many people loved Ripley from the Alien series? One of the most badass heroines that we've ever had. Probably my favorite, female protagonist ever, to be honest. Just because she's just a normal person that just got caught up in this crap and rose to the occasion, and she had her own courage. Her courage is really her strength. And, we've seen plenty of characters like this that we love, and it was never, hey, we're throwing this out there. It fit with the story that was trying to be told, and they were telling good stories. And ultimately, good storytelling is what we're losing nowadays, because everything has to be. We've lost people that have good ideas. There are people out there. A lot of them have been pushed to the wayside, but we're seeing things like the Rippaverse. We're seeing creators now, through these platforms too, independent gaming, independent creators producing content that is better than anything you can see in Hollywood. Even this, YouTube, you guys hanging out watching this kind of entertainment, that takes away the power that the traditional gaming and entertainment industries have, and that really bothers these people. It makes them panic in a lot of cases. So they try to take control of the things that they can through the major corporations and DEI policies and trying to push these things. But ultimately, the cat is out of the bag, and we have so many different resources and avenues in order to be able to, basically exist within this space and interact with the people that we want. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop it, but you can see the effort that is going to be made here. And that's where we're at. So ultimately, what do you guys think about this? This was like an hour-long rant. I can't believe that this was the topic that did it, but I think that was a cool look at the entire crisis or the entire story of what was going on with Sweet Baby Inc. and kind of where it's at and how it started, or where it's at and how it started. So keep watching it. There's a lot of good people exposing that. Give Savvy a follow there. I think she did great. Oh, you sent me a Rumble rant. Let me check that out. I'm sorry that was not on Rumble. And checking that out, JM the Elite Fan for 25 on Rumble. We have 6 people watching there too. To add another layer to the Sweet Baby Inc. and censoring chats, look at Bridge, a leadership organization comprising of a myriad of execs from Western corporations, another head of Hydra. So let's check that out. So as we get more information, and why not check it out? The small Bridge leadership organization. Let's look that up. Bridge leadership organization. Well, it's funny when I search for it, it goes straight to Sweet Baby Inc. So I guess they really are that tied with them. But yeah, interesting stuff. I think again we're going to keep monitoring this. This story's not going to go away. It seems like every day we peel back this onion a little bit more, and we find out more and more. Yes. Now that's not true. That's not an invalid point. Got that in the chat. That yes, there are people that could have gone and conquered and done those things. Yes, that's true. But I guess what I'm saying is that in the past we've had stories told, and we kind of the characters are what they are. It was never necessarily the focus of trying to create that. It was all about the storytelling and trying to create great characters. And there wasn't so much of this concern with the identity politics or anything like that. And I think that what we've been seeing is that we just don't see that effort. That's really what it is. There isn't the effort to create this because we're seeing a combination of too many different things here, which is we're getting identity politics injected into entertainment, but we're also getting mediocre quality of entertainment. And that is really what's egregious here. Completely egregious. So I think that's really what we're seeing. You're seeing this lack of effort, lack of polish within these companies. So it's bad enough when you have politics being injected, you don't get a good story, you don't have that effort thrown in there, and then you're given a product that requires a massive day one patch. The games are glitchy, the servers don't work, and now this is all compounded. And this just seems to be a common issue, especially with Western gaming, as these corporations get larger and they go in just to make money. That's really what they're looking for. They're looking for a low effort, to use the term, a cash grab. And that's really what it is, because they know they are not, let's take Skull and Bones is a perfect example of this, because this really is all related. It is accepting mediocrity, throwing it out there, and then the disingenuousness of them throwing identity politics is like some sort of excuse and smokescreen. And I think it's really funny because the people that are complaining the most about representation, diversity in video games are the ones that are being played the most, because you can see how a lot of these corporations don't give a crap about the people that are complaining about this stuff. So you'll see that you'll have different localizations of games that may remove kind of woke ideologies, gay characters, things like that. Maybe censor the way that some women are portrayed. But here, that, hey, nobody cares. They'll throw in some sort of nod to woke ideology, or they'll change something. They'll add a rule, or they'll just throw some, tokenization, a rainbow flag or something in there just to appease the mobs. But if they go to a different country that doesn't care about wokeness, they may change the property. So, but if you create a good game, people won't care. They won't. There are characters that have been gay. There are plenty of amazing female and minority characters in a lot of these games. It comes down to, are you creating good stories and compelling characters with exciting and fun gameplay that is also a polished experience. And that's really what they did. That's really what the problem is. And you have people also in modern gaming, because Carla brought up what happened with Wheel of Time, Rings of Power, obviously, the Halo TV series. Hopefully it's not going to happen to Fallout. It probably will. I'm going to be pissed off because I'm actually going to watch that one. This is what we see. We also have people, again, that want to, I don't know what happened with the whole, taking care of a franchise, respecting where characters come from and how they started and the lore of a series. This is something that we've seen devastate. We always have a creator that comes in here, whether it's in Hollywood or gaming. They're like, well, I want to put my spin. I want to put my fingerprints on this and change the story. If you want to do that, then make an independent game, and you can make that game however you want. And it will probably do crappy. Let's be perfectly honest. It probably won't do well. So rather than ruining established franchises, running them to the ground, injecting your own personal thing here for a franchise that has already been established, create your own crap. Choose to bring people on that actually care about these franchises, that care about the characters, that care about the lore, that are actually writing well here, that can write multifaceted characters that have strengths and weaknesses. And that's what we want to see, because ultimately, like, let's see, like, what is some of the biggest issues that we see with the laziness of some of these characters. We see the injection of a lot of Mary Sue type characters, and people that don't have to overcome any sort of adversity. They are perfect as they are right away, and they're amazing. What is the fun in that? We always want to see the hero's journey. There's a reason why for thousands of years that is a format of story that we have seen, because it works. That's what we like to see. We do like people to be thrown down and overcome that adversity. And then you appreciate the power that you have later on as you go there. Everybody likes leveling up their character, going through the process, because then you have some pride in the work that you put into it, the time, the effort that you put into it, and you enjoy it even more. And so again, this is what's permeating here. And, it really is up to us as gamers to do what we've been doing, pushing back, not buying from these companies. I mean, look at even what happened with the Battlefront collection that just came out in the pitiful, sorry state that it's in right now. That was basically a cash grab. Even for $40, a lot of people were excited for that. But, Aspire released it in such a terrible state that it is unsatisfactory in the modern era that you see something like that. It is embarrassing and it is lazy. And this really is the issue that we're coming in here. The lack of quality in products that are being produced today, and the fact that they want to charge you even more. So it really exemplifies, games like Helldivers. They're not full price games, but they're well polished, that the developers are very involved in, that, even if they didn't expect the success that they had, they've been able to adapt and improve upon the experiences that's gone along, listen to the community, gotten the community involved in those things. And I think that's what game developers are supposed to do, because ultimately gaming is about having fun. And that's what we've moved away from. It has been about injecting reality into it, taking away the escapism, taking away the fun, taking away all conflict and adversity from people. And you can't do that. Can't do that, because that's going to take away from the experience. And ultimately you're going to lose on the core fans that are out there. So, nice rebel scum. I appreciate that. It's good to hear that. Y'all are like the brothers I never had. I only have a half sister. It is nice to hear that. And that's, and that's how you should feel. I mean, that's how this forum is. We've got almost 50 people here. Let's see how Rumble is. We are also on Rumble for the first time. We've got 8 people watching on Rumble. That's awesome. We're going to keep growing the Rumble side of things. But, we've lost sight on the fun. And this is kind of what happens. Anytime that there's, money to be made. Look, these are businesses. Obviously, people deserve to have a livelihood. I'm a capitalist just as much as anybody else. But, you have to have products. A lot of these companies really are soulless. They don't have anything behind them. They just push out products. I mean, how can you take a game based on the premise of Assassin's Creed 4, which was one of my favorite games ever. Maybe not as an Assassin's Creed game is it the best, but as a game, I think it's pretty awesome. And I've been playing it again lately. And you come out with something like Skull and Bones. Only Ubisoft is capable of doing that kind of stuff, where Ubisoft always has this kind of unique premise and their games look great, but they've always got some BS that they throw in there that's just going to piss you off. Whether it's, pay to win kind of gameplay boosts inside a single player game, to microtransactions at the wazoo in multiplayer stuff, and abandoning games after a short period of time, some of them, or just, going off the walls. At least sometimes they do experiment, even though a lot of their open world games are pretty formulaic at this point. But, this is something that we see. A lack of polish, lack of fun, and an injection of things that nobody wants. As consumers, we just have to push back against it. That's really what it comes down to. We need to do Discord. I'll make one, but again, I just don't think I would be monitoring that much. The Ezio games were great. I love the original Assassin's Creed as well. I loved the older Far Cry games up to like Far Cry 4, and it's a shame that we're here, but we've got to do something to push back against it. We really do. Not paying for pre-orders, calling out this BS, making sure that there are good refund policies when games come out, in the case of something like the Battlefront collection, because this is all unacceptable. This is the state of gaming right now. That's why there's a lack of trust in gamers, and why we jump to negative conclusions immediately, because that's basically how it's been. We've been beat over the head for so long, and this happens in all of our different communities, in the gun community as well. When all legislation was negative, you just expect everything. Like, you don't accept any sort of rule changes because something bad's always going to happen. And so when we do get victories, sometimes you can't believe it. Like constitutional carry throughout the entire country has been a major victory. So, huge topic. This is really what the culture war is all about. And it's crazy that gamers are kind of at the forefront of this again when it comes to this stuff. But really, it does come down to the expectations that we set for these corporations, and letting them know we as consumers don't accept this garbage. They're making too much money, and we need to show, hey, we don't like this crap, and you need to produce a better product, because it's unacceptable what we're seeing here. It really is. We have a lot of examples of companies that are capable of doing good things with much smaller teams. So there's obviously a lot of bloat, excess, and inefficiency that we're seeing in the AAA gaming space. And part of it is that they're dealing with companies like Sweet Baby Inc. that are injecting crap that has nothing to do to actually making games better and more fun, which is what gaming is all about. That's really what it is. Gaming's, yes, they're an art form. They can tell social commentaries. They can do things that no other medium can, because you're interacting with them directly. But not every game has to have that. Not every game needs to make some sort of statement. In fact, I would say the majority of them don't. We just want them to be fun so we can hang out with our friends and have a good time and escape from all the BS that's happening in the world, because ultimately that's what it is. That's what it's about. So that's what I have to say about that. That's what I got to say. Let's move on to the next topic here. I'm actually going to talk about the crisis in Haiti because I think that it's pretty profound to see. And I think, again, it kind of points into the necessity to own firearms and to protect yourself, getting to know your neighbors, not being in a society, being ready for societal collapse, I guess, is kind of a way to say this. Unfortunately, Haiti, throughout pretty much its entire history, has suffered from natural and political disasters. And it's a shame that the people there have been going through this. This is a crisis that will affect us. I'm sure that it's going to compound the immigration crisis that we're having here as well. So let's get into it and kind of talk about this. Let's see, gaming something. Let me go through the chat real quick, see what you guys have to say here. Carla said absolutely. To me, I guess to the rant that I was on there. Oh yeah, about gaming being fun. Warsaw Patriot says, one of these days we need to do the Discord. I'll figure it out. I'm kind of afraid of doing a Discord because I know I'm not going to be involved as I should be, just because I know I am about that stuff. I was talking about Netflix adapted show. I don't know if you saw it, but from the original, yeah, Bjorn, Uba, and Ivar were iconic characters. Zach Updegraff says frustratingly true. Warsaw Patriot says my favorite Assassin's Creed games were the Ezio ones. Also, the Roost CDV says the Roost storyline was one of my favorites, but Ragnar is king. Loquacious. CDV said, my bad, I never watched the sequel. I've always loved AC3 and AC4 personally. I do too. JM the Elite fan said, if Monolith Software can make a massive JRPG without crunch or bugs, there's really no excuse for a poor quality product. I agree. Cody T says, is that a Duke controller? It is a Duke controller. Thanks for pointing that out. It absolutely is. This is the Hyperkin Duke controller, and it's pretty cool because when you press the guide button, it does the old Xbox, the original Xbox like loading screen. It's just so shiny now. The green screen effect, I think, is like taking it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's massive. It's just as big as you remember it. I mean, let's compare it to like a regular, a modern Xbox controller, and you can kind of see the difference here. So, and how crazy these things were. And like, I mean, it was like 20 years ago when I got this thing. I have to think that I was like, I guess I was, in high school. So my hands were still pretty much the same size they are today. But yeah, it is crazy to think that as kids, there were a lot of us that were playing with this massive beast of a controller here. And it's just so thick. It's just so dang thick. Like you can kind of see there. But I still think it's kind of comfortable. I'm going to play some games with it. I'll probably play some, remasters and things like that with that controller. I think that will be fun. And it seems it's pretty well built. So, yeah, that thing's pretty cool. You can find them online for like $60 or something like that. So it's not bad. They're the same price as a normal controller. Seems pretty solid. But yeah, super duper thick. I really like the triggers on them. They added shoulder buttons because they didn't originally. Obviously, there's no memory cards now. So that's like blocked off. So that's where that used to be. And this one's like the 20th anniversary edition. I think you can get ones with different art. Triggers feel really good. I play with paddles now, so whether it's the Elite controller here, so that's kind of what I'm used to. The ROG Ally is back here. So yeah, I don't have the green screen today just because I wanted to kind of have stuff in the background. I don't have too much stuff in this studio room setup now just because I haven't taken the time. A lot of my stuff is still in storage from the previous locked and loaded studio. But I'm going to keep this kind of clean. We got the Xbox going on in the background. That's the Palmetto State Armory M110A1 AR-10. Obviously, we've got the Master Chief Legendary Edition helmet here from Halo 3. We've got a DeLorean. This here, which I'm not touching YouTube because we don't touch Firearms Live, is obviously my Shadow Systems XR920, which I love, 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 love. Let's see. It's barbecue. Oh my gosh. Rebel Scum, you're terrible. Admiring the thickness. That's some layers that need dissecting. There's no dissecting this. I'm a Hispanic man, so of course I like the thickness. Like, that is what we do. You have to understand that the thickness is a very important quality when it comes to the Latin woman. So, you have to appreciate that. So yes, I appreciate the Duke controller. Oh man, you guys. All right, let's go back. Let's go to serious. Thanks for pointing out for catching that. I did have it there. I was going to play something later on. Oh, let's get I've got Halo, the Master Chief Collection playing in the background right there. So good stuff. Thank you. All right, let's go to what is going on in Haiti. And if you live in Florida, you really should be up to date with what's going on here. Let's bring the text around. Okay. What to know about the crisis of violence, politics, and hunger engulfing Haiti. Chaos has gutted Port-au-Prince and Haiti's government, a crisis brought on by decades of political disruption, a series of natural disasters, and a power vacuum left by the president's assassination. A long simmering crisis over Haiti's ability to govern itself, particularly after a series of natural disasters and an increasingly dire humanitarian emergency, has come to a head in the Caribbean nation as its de facto president remains stranded in Puerto Rico and its people starve and live in fear of rampant violence. The chaos engulfing the country has been bubbling for more than a year, only for it to spill over on the global stage on Monday night, as Haiti's unpopular Prime Minister Ariel Henry agreed to resign once a transitional government is brokered by other European or Caribbean nations and parties, including the U.S. But the very idea of a transitional government brokered not by Haitians, but by outsiders is one of the main reasons Haiti, a nation of 11 million, is on the brink, according to humanitarian workers and residents who have called for Haitian-led solutions. Quote, what we're seeing in Haiti has been building since the 2010 earthquake, end quote, said Greg Beckett, an associate professor of anthropology at Western University in Canada. What is happening in Haiti and why? In the power vacuum that followed the assassination of democratically elected President Jovenel Moise in 2021, Henry, who was prime minister under Moise, assumed power with the support of several nations, including the United States. When Haiti failed to hold elections multiple times, Henry said it was due to logistical problems or violence. Protests rang out against him. By the time Henry announced last year the elections would be postponed again to 2025, armed groups that were already active in Port-au-Prince, the capital, dialed up the violence. Even before Moise's assassination, these militias and armed groups existed alongside politicians who used them to do their bidding, including everything from intimidating the opposition to collecting votes. With the dwindling of the country's elected officials, though, many of these rebel forces have engaged in excessively violent acts and have taken control of at least 80% of the capital, according to a United Nations estimate. Those groups, which include paramilitary and former police officers who pose as community leaders, have been responsible for the increase in the killings, kidnappings, and rapes since Moise's death, according to the Uppsala Conflict Data Program at Uppsala University in Sweden. According to a report from the UN released in January, more than 8,400 people were killed, injured, or kidnapped in 2023, an increase of 122%, from 2022. Quote, January and February have been the most violent months in the recent crisis, with thousands of people killed or injured or raped, Beckett said. End quote. Armed groups had been calling for Henry's resignation to have already attacked airports, police stations, seaports, the central bank, and the country's national soccer stadium. The situation reached critical mass earlier this month when the country's two main prisons were raided, leading to the escape of about 4,000 prisoners. The beleaguered government called a 72-hour state of emergency, including a nighttime curfew, but its authority had evaporated by then. Aside from human-made catastrophes, Haiti has still not recovered from the devastating earthquake in 2010 that killed about 220,000 people. And left 1.5 million homeless, many of them living in poorly built and exposed housing. More earthquakes, hurricanes, and floods have followed, exacerbating efforts to rebuild infrastructure and a sense of national unity. Since the earthquake, quote, there have been groups in Haiti trying to control that reconstruction process and the funding, the billions of dollars coming into the country to rebuild it. And we know that the Clinton Foundation had a lot of corruption and involvement there. You know, major corporations basically like laundering money through supposed reconstruction efforts in Haiti, and a lot of shady deals that, you know, we've never really gotten to the bottom of. Beckett said that control initially came from politicians and subsequently from armed groups supported by those politicians. Political parties that controlled the government used the government for corruption to steal that money. We're seeing the fallout from that, end quote. Many armed groups have formed in recent years claiming to be community groups, carrying out essential work in underprivileged neighborhoods, but they have instead been accused of violence, even murder. One of the two main groups, G9, is led by a former elite police officer, Jimmy Shirazé, also known as Barbecue, who's become the public face of the unrest and claimed credit for various attacks on public institutions. He has openly called for Henry to step down and has called his campaign, quote, an armed revolution, end quote. But caught in the crossfire are the residents of Haiti. In just 1 week, 15,000 people have been displaced from Port-au-Prince, according to a UN estimate. but people have been trying to flee the capital for well over a year, with one woman telling NBC News that she's currently hiding in a church with her 3 children and another family with 8 children. Wow. The UN said about 160,000 people have left Port-au-Prince because of the swell of violence in the last several months. Deep poverty and famine are also a serious danger. Gangs have cut off access to the country's largest port. Autorité, I don't know, Puerta Nacional, I can't read French, and food or Creole, and food could soon become scarce. Haiti's uncertain future. A new transitional government may dismay the Haitians and their supporters who call for Haitian-led solutions to the crisis, but the creation of such a government would come after years of democratic disruption and the crumbling of Haiti's political leadership. The country hasn't held an election in 8 years. Haitian advocates and scholars alike, like Jemima Pierre, a professor at the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, say foreign intervention, including from the U.S., is partially to blame for Haiti's turmoil. The U.S. has routinely sent thousands of troops to Haiti, intervened in its government, and supported unpopular leaders like Henry. Quote, what you have, no surprise that the U.S. would be involved with things like that. Really, the U.S. messing things up because they get involved. Interesting. Quote, what you have over the last 20 years is the consent of dismantling of the Haitian state, end quote, Pierre. What intervention means for Haiti, what has always meant is death and destruction. In fact, the country's situation was so dire that Henry was forced to travel abroad in the hope of securing a UN peacekeeping deal. He went to Kenya, which agreed to send 1,000 troops to coordinate an East African and UN-backed alliance to help restore order in Haiti, but the plan is now on hold. Kenya agreed last October to send a UN-sanctioned security force to Haiti, but Kenya's courts decided it was unconstitutional. The result has been Haiti fending for itself. A force like Kenya... Oh my gosh, we have a cat that's complaining. Look, if a cat's complaining, you know what this means. We gotta bring her on camera. Oh yeah, yep. That's cat on camera. All right, what do you have to say? You have something to say? Do you? Huh? Read to? No, you don't have anything to say to the chat? That's how it is, right? You just gotta bring her on here. Huh? You have anything? Oh, there we go. What do you have to say? All right. There you go. Oh, that's free to everybody. Yes, there she is, Carla. The myth and the legend herself, Ritu, Child Cat, Mini Mew, whatever you want to call her. Quicha. She's got weird, crazy nicknames that don't make any sense, that are in English and Spanish. And so she probably doesn't even remember her identity. Kat was talking mad shit off cam, but clammed up right in the spotlight. That's right. The Puerto Rican, she is Puerto Rican. She was rescued from Puerto Rico. Oh man, thank you. We'll make sure that she's more involved in these shows going forward. I love cats too, Cody T. I love that's my little baby right there. Okay, what are we doing here? We were on. Okay, a force like Kenya, they don't speak Creole, they don't speak French. The Kenyan police are known for human rights abuses. So what it tells us as Haitians is that the only thing that you see that we deserve are not schools, not reparations for the cholera the UN brought, but more military with the mandate to use all kinds of force on our population. That's unacceptable. Henry was forced to announce his planned resignation from Puerto Rico as threats of violence and armed groups taking over the airports have prevented him from returning to his country. Now that Henry is to stand down, it's far from clear what the armed groups will do or demand next, aside from the right to govern. It's the Haitian people who know what they're going through. It's the Haitian people who are going to take destiny into their own hands. Haitian people will choose who will govern them. Cherizet said recently, according to the Associated Press, Haitians and their supporters have put forth their own solutions over the years, holding that foreign intervention routinely ignores the voices and desires of Haitians. In 2021, both Haitian and non-Haitian church leaders, women's rights groups, lawyers, humanitarian workers, the voodoo sector, and more created the commission to search for a Haitian solution to the crisis. The commission has proposed the Montana Accord, outlining a 2-year interim government with oversight committees tasked with restoring order, eradicating corruption, and establishing fair elections. There was a correction. An earlier version of this article misstated that University Jemima, that she was with a different university. So, yeah, that's what we've got going on there. There have also been, reports of cannibalism and, pretty awful things occurring in Haiti as, society falls into chaos there. And, this really outlines kind of the greater immigration crisis that we're having too, that we have, societies that are falling apart throughout the world because of foreign interventions, and then we have to suffer the consequences of them later on. Unfortunately, Haiti has been a failed state for decades now at this point. There's a lot of weird stuff that's always gone down in Haiti. Like I saw the voodoo sector and I was like, well, man, I don't know about that. Maybe it's some crazy stuff that's like cursed the island or cursed that part of Hispaniola, because it's insane. It's terrible what those people go through. So I mean, I don't know. It's pretty crazy. It's awful, but what does it outline and what are some of the lessons that you can learn? And I think it's important about learning about crises like this in order to learn to prepare. Now, obviously, Haiti has always had this level of kind of instability politically and societally. The natural resource issue there is a problem too. They've cut down pretty much all the trees on that half of the island, and you can see a difference. There's mudslides. There's always collapses there. During earthquakes, it causes a lot of issues, with the soil. It's not good for growing either. So it's just a place that is, it's just a place, unfortunately, that has a lot of issues fundamentally that are difficult to overcome. R. Leon says, I was deployed to Haiti in the 90s. It was after Operation Restore Democracy. That worked out well. George Romero could have made material over Haiti. I mean, it just seems like chaos. But it highlights the importance of being prepared in a society, if you can, and learning how to survive. And, building that kind of community cohesion to protect yourselves. Getting to know your neighbors, I think, is very important, because if you go through a crisis like a natural disaster, for example, a hurricane, anything like that, we have to deal with this in South Florida. So being able to help one another out when electricity is gone, when you don't know when that's going to be restored, when, buildings are partially destroyed or infrastructure is completely out of commission and there's no rule of law. So like for Hurricane Katrina, for example, the chaos that ensued in New Orleans. So being prepared for those situations is essential. Having food, supplies, firearms, obviously, being able to protect yourself, knowing who to trust, and knowing the area that you live in and how to evacuate that area or fortify the area that you have. I think these are all important things, and they're essential for your survival and the survival of your family when you get into situations like this. Having multiple months worth of supplies for you and your entire family. I would say at least 3 months. The more, the better. So if you can get years and years worth of that, it's an Operation Montana Accord. I mean, we can look at what the Montana Accord is. I'm not sure why it's called the Montana Accord, but it's in French, so maybe it's just somebody's name that was part of it. So here's the Montana Accord, apparently. But yeah, it's in French. And I think I think you always have to be prepared. You've got to have medical supplies. You have to delineate responsibility with people. Make sure that you have a group of people that you can trust and that have specialized skills, or that you learn some of these specialized skills. Learning basic first aid, having trauma kits, having, basic antibiotics, having, essential antibiotics, kits like that, making sure that your equipment works, making sure that your food hasn't expired, keeping track of all that, having an inventory of these things. And again, even within your own family, having people responsible for certain things and making sure that everybody understands where everything is and how everything works. Training everybody on the equipment that you have, whether it's the medical equipment, knowing where all that stuff is, knowing different routes, knowing how to read maps, knowing how to, prepare food, all of those basics, knowing how to operate firearms, obviously, and how to do basic maintenance and repairs on those firearms and on any of the equipment that you have, having fuel, knowing how to start fires, having some cash on hand or things that you're going to need to barter with, because, you know, if you don't have power, things like that, you don't have credit cards, you're going to need to barter things. So whether that's things that are nice or conveniences, cigarettes, chocolate, candy, you know, luxury items. You'd be surprised that a society collapses and things are not back to normal for weeks or even months, or who knows if it's something really awful like some sort of EMP or world war. They last years. Those things are going to be high commodities. Money's basically going to be worthless in most cases. So having some luxury goods that are not essential, but you know, are appreciated, even things like soap, toilet paper, all that stuff, those are going to become luxury goods that you're not going to get access to easily in this kind of situation. John Crump, what's going on? You know, you want to make sure that you stockpile of that. COVID taught us a lot of these things and what we needed to do if society all of a sudden halted. So these are all things that you need to prepare for, because we may not have a crisis like this. I mean, obviously, everybody's concerned with what's going to happen potentially with the election, the outcome. Is there going to be some sort of civil conflict in the United States? I don't know. I would like to think that there isn't going to be one. For whatever reason, you guys know how cynical I've been over the last few years. I've become a little bit less cynical over the last few months. Can't necessarily explain it. It's just something that I've been feeling. So hopefully that's true, but I'm still prepared. You know, I'm still preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. And that's why I'm letting you guys know to do the same thing, because it doesn't hurt you to be prepared. It really doesn't. It may hurt your wallet a little bit because a lot of these things do cost a lot of money, especially if you're getting them in bulk and you're stockpiling them. But you can take, you know, small amounts every time. Maybe you don't do something fun that you would like to do in order to get some of this stuff, and then be prepared. Have all those things on hand. You're never going to regret it. Let's be honest, especially if you live in a state where it's more likely for something like that to happen. Maybe you get earthquakes. Maybe you get hurricanes like we do. There were some bad tornadoes that went between Ohio and Indiana a few weeks ago, or not a few weeks ago, this past week. If you've been watching some of the, you know, the weather YouTube channels and things like that and paying attention to that, people died. So imagine losing everything that you have in seconds. If you have bags, you know, kind of bug out bags, quick packs that you can do that. I've got a massive like hiking bag that's full with all this stuff, with like even machete, hatchets, things like that. You know, basic first aid kits, ammunition, some food, granola bars, all that stuff. Ways to purify water. That's extremely important. Actually, that's one of the most important things that you need to have. The ability to purify your water. Different means, whether it's something like a life straw, that's like a direct, you just stick it into a water source and you drink directly through it, or, you know, different filtration systems like, you know, the big Brita tanks, or bladders, different pumps that you can get from different companies. I believe MSR makes some great products that you could just pump, and it's got a hose that you stick into a water source, a lake or something like that, a pond, a stream, and you just pump it, and pure water will come out, and you can fill a bladder for a Camelback or bottles or whatever you have. And containers like that are almost like the equivalent of how old goat skins would be are great, because they can fold up. You can carry a lot of them instead of having massive bottles that take up a lot of weight. So I think it's important to have all of those things. Ways to start fire, multiple means. So obviously you want like ferro rods, flint strikers, and things like that. Those are great, on top of having lighters and torches and things like that. Have all that stuff. Batteries are fantastic. Solar panels are great, especially in moments where you may not get, you know, power sources. And batteries obviously are going to be a hot commodity that are expended as time goes on, and you won't be able to replenish them necessarily. Even rechargeable batteries will eventually lose their charges. You know, months and years of heavy usage go by. So you'll need to figure that out as well. It's important for your optics on your firearms too, to have alternative means of power, because a lot of these have batteries, the CR2032s. So on my red dot optics, I do like Hollow Suns because they have solar panels on a lot of their optics, and they can function even when the batteries are dead if you have a light source, which is extremely useful. So having all that stuff, being prepared, knowing how to use it, teaching your members of your family how to use it, keeping an inventory of all these things so that you don't lose track of it. Or if you suffer like ADD from me, you forget that you already have a lot of this stuff and you keep buying way more stuff than you need. So you really need to do that. And I bought a lot of fantastic books that I have about homesteading, things like that, being able to survive, written by, the SAS Survival Handbook, the U.S. Army Guide, basically, to Fieldcraft. Those are all things that you want to, field guides, things like that. Those are resources that you want to have. You want to have them digitally and obviously physically, because you're not going to be able to use them digitally. Now, things like Kindles are very useful in my opinion because they can work offline. Amazon's not going to nuke those things if their servers go down, at least once those are on there in airplane mode. And they require such minimal power that if you have them on like a solar charger, they're going to be good to go. And you can keep thousands of books on one of those, but you really still want to keep a physical book. Now, physical books are heavy. So if you're on the move, like you're displaced, you can't stay in that, your house has been destroyed by a tornado or hurricane or flood or something like that, or fires, obviously you're going to lose a lot of those physical resources that you may have to survive. So you need a mobile kit that you can keep inside of a vehicle that's easier to take. And I do think that something like an ebook reader can have its usefulness there in that situation of archiving and being a repository of useful information. So yeah, learn what you can from disasters like this, seeing people that are unfortunate. There are either, I think people in Haiti just don't have the options to even prepare the way that we do, obviously. So it's an unfortunate situation, something to look at, learn lessons from there. Always check out these stories. I think it's important to be prepared and not be naive about these things. And we need to prepare here because this is going to add to the, kind of the immigration and refugee crisis that we're dealing with today. Let's be perfectly honest. So as more and more people try to free Haiti, it's going to, it's going to exacerbate what we're dealing with the southern border here. Let me get this cat out of here. She wants to leave the studio. Give me a second. All right, she's out of here. Freaking cat. So spoiled, and she's just controlling anything. Rebel Scum says, and Carla agrees, that most Americans wouldn't make it. We're too coddled and comfortable. We've had it good for a very long time. It's true. It is absolutely true. And it's unfortunate, but it also shows you that a little bit of preparation is going to take you a long way. And you will be part of this percentage that will have a much greater chance of surviving with even just basic preparations and firearm and first aid training, because most people don't have any of it. And really getting to know people that are like-minded in your community and getting them together. That's really what it is. Having people that are ready to go in a moment's notice. You call them up and you're like, hey, bad things have happened, or hey, we just got hit by a tornado. People that you can trust that have equipment too, that you can, rely on for help. And then you obviously can reciprocate that with the people that you trust, your family members, your good friends, and members of your community. And you can also defend your areas. I know that after, which one was it that went through Key West? We had the year with the 3 hurricanes. I think 17 was it? 2017, 2018, where we had Harvey, Irma, and Maria. And Irma went through the Keys, and I remember I had I was speaking to somebody at the time that had a business down there, and they told me, because I had to go down for, my day job. I had a client down there in the Keys, and they had told me, yeah, it was crazy. Going down past, the 7 Mile Bridge and everything like that. I forgot which mile marker it was. It was a little bit further north, where basically they had a police there or National Guard, and they're like, once you pass this point, like, that's it. There's lawlessness. There is no military or police presence down there. So you are on your own. And he was like, okay. And that's it. Nobody's there to help you. And he had to make sure his business and house were okay, but it was pretty crazy. And those are situations that happen. It's completely realistic. So be prepared or you'll regret it. So I don't have that much time left to talk about TikTok. I was actually really happy with how we started the show. So the TikTok bill is very interesting. Let's see if we can kind of get the text of the bill. TikTok bill, because I'd like to read some of it. It was just passed in the House. Ba-ba-bum. All right. Can you give me what the bill would be? HR whatever or HB. I love it when they always say, well, it's this bill, but they don't tell me what the bill is. Okay, TikTok bill text. And I had it open earlier, and for some reason now I can't find it. Text. Here we go. The Restrict Act. I believe this is it. Ba-ba-bum. Okay, yeah, I believe this is it right here. Read twice and referred to. Introduced 3/7/2023. Blah, blah, blah. Introduced in Senate 7/20. No, I don't think this is it. This is written similar. No one reads the fine print in bills, obviously. Yeah, that's why we have to check it out. Man, why is this one not popping up here? 4 days ago. Passed the bill. Okay. Signed the bill. Future of the bill. Voted Wednesday. 170 million, 32. The House voted with bipartisan overwhelming fashion on Wednesday to pass a bill that could lead to a nationwide ban against TikTok, a major challenge to one of the world's most popular social media platforms. The bill would prohibit TikTok from U.S. app stores unless the social media platform used by roughly 170 million. Is it HR 231? I think that's the one that I was looking at. Let me see. That would be good. No, this one was S686. Let me see. HR 320, HR 231. To prohibit federal funds. No, that one is there. No. Terminate TikTok on Campus Act of 2023. No, this one is, what is? House swipes up TikTok bill, blah, blah, blah. Made a great point. So Cerber says bills should be released to the public before or after our representatives do that. Yes. I do agree with that. I do absolutely agree with that. Man, how can I not find the text of the bill right now? This is really, really bizarre that I could not find it. News. Okay, TikTok House bill text. Fact check. Will TikTok ban allow government to ban any website? Could effectively the claim a Reddit post upvoted that TikTok said the TikTok bill that just passed gives the government control, force the ban of any website or app, not just TikTok. This will clearly be pointed immediately to X after election. This country is beyond. I don't necessarily. The bill protecting Americans from foreign adversary. There we go. HR 7521. It's actually not that long. Okay, so we can read. Let's just read it, and we will interpret ourselves what it is. So there are a lot of people telling us certain things about what it means. It is 14 pages, so it's not that short, but the pages are pretty big. So let's go through this as quickly as we can. We will see if we can glean something from it. So now I know there's a lot of people who are concerned that this is going to give the government more power to regulate other social media companies. I've kind of heard a little bit of both, so I really want to read this myself because I was watching a little bit of Tim Pool the other day, and it seems to be very explicit in its mentioning. So I can already see, you can kind of already see just through the beginning premise to protect HR 7521, an act to protect the national security of the United States from the threat posed by foreign adversary controlled applications. So, I mean, that now, if you want to get really, really cynical, You can say, well, who determines what a foreign adversary controlled application is? Like, what's the threshold for that? I mean, we can nitpick that all day. But you know, that seems kind of explicit to me. Such as TikTok and any successor application or service, and any other application or service developed or provided by ByteDance Limited, which is the company that owns TikTok, or an entity member under control of ByteDance. So that's pretty specific. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States in Congress assembled. Section 1, short title of the act may be cited as Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. Section 2, Prohibition of Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications. In general, a prohibition of foreign adversary controlled applications. It shall be unlawful for an entity to distribute, maintain, or update, or enable the distribution, maintenance, or updating of a foreign adversary controlled application by carrying out within the land or maritime borders of the United States any of the following. A, providing services to distribute, maintain, or update such foreign adversary controlled application, including any source code of such application by means of a marketplace, including an online mobile application store through which users within the land or maritime borders of the U.S. may access, maintain, or update such application. Providing internet hosting services to enable the distribution, maintenance, or updating of such foreign adversary controlled applications for users within the land or maritime borders of the United States. 2, applicability. Subsection A shall apply in the case of an application that satisfies the definition of a foreign adversary controlled application pursuant to subsection G3A, beginning on the date that is 180 days after the date of enactment on this act. And B, in case of an application that satisfies the definition of a foreign adversary control application pursuant to subsection G3B, beginning on the date that is 180 days after the date of the relevant determination of the president under such subsection. Okay, that's basically just how it'll be enacted. B, data and information portability to alternative applications. Before the date on which a prohibition under subsection A applies to a foreign adversary controlled application, the entity, we're just going to call them FACAs, FACAs. The entity that owns or controls such an application shall provide, upon request by a user of such an application within the land or maritime borders of the United States, to such user all available data related to the account of the user with respect to such application. Such data shall be provided in a machine-readable format and shall include any data maintained such as application with respect to account such user, including posts, photos, videos, and all other account information. That's not a bad thing if you have a right to your data. Once TikTok is dumped. Exemptions. Number 1, exemptions for qualified divestitures. So basically, if the company, divests, they find an American, like an American entity they can divest to, I'm assuming this is what it means, and basically give up their resources. So TikTok gets sold to Rumble or something like that. A, does not apply to a foreign adversary application with respect to which a qualified divestiture is executed before the date on which a prohibition under subsection would begin to apply such an application. So yes, if a company, if they're able to get somebody to buy TikTok before this happens, an American company, then TikTok can continue on, presumably as it is, but I would think that an American company would change things significantly. B, shall cease to apply in the case of a foreign adversary control application with respect to which a qualified divestiture is executed after the date on which a prohibition under subsection A applies to such an application. Exemption. Okay, so I guess you can do it before or after. Exemptions for certain necessary services. Subsections A and B do not apply to services with respect to a foreign adversary control application. They're necessary for the entity to attain compliance with such subsection. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Enforcement, civil penalties. Foreign adversary controlled application violations. An entity that violates subsection A shall be subject to pay a civil penalty in the amount not to exceed an amount that results from multiplying 5,000 by the number of users within the land or maritime borders of the United States determined to have accessed, maintained, or updated a foreign adversary controlled application as a result of such violation. Data and information violations. An entity that violates subsection B shall be subject to pay a civil penalty in the amount not to exceed the amount that results from multiplying 500 by the number of users within the border of the United States, blah, blah, blah. Actions by the Attorney General shall conduct investigations related to potential violations. The Attorney General can blah, 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 check to see what the violations are. Okay. Satisfies. Okay. Subsequent determinations. If the application of any provision of this section is held invalid with respect to a foreign adversary controlled application that satisfies the definition of such a term pursuant to subsection G3A, such invalidity shall not affect or preclude the application of the same provision to such foreign adversary controlled application by means of a subsequent determination pursuant to subsection G3B. Holy cow. Rule of construction. Nothing in this act may be construed, 1, to authorize the Attorney General to pursue enforcement under this section other than enforcement. 2, to authorize the Attorney General to pursue enforcement under this section against an individual user of a foreign adversary application. So, okay. So, can't go after individual users. That's a good thing. I mean, that's good to see. Let's be honest. This is why we do have to read through these things, because you can see red flags and you can see things that may not be bad. That's not a bad thing. Except as expressly provided herein to alter, affect, or affect any other authority provided by or established under provision of federal law. Definitions. Okay, this is important. In this section, 1, controlled by a foreign adversary. The term controlled by a foreign adversary means with respect to a covered company or other entity that such a company or other entity is a foreign person that is domiciled in, is headquartered in, has its principal place of business in, or is under the laws of a foreign adversary country. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that this bill is perfect, but let's be honest. Does that seem like X would fall under that category? Is X a foreign, owned by a foreign person that is domiciled, headquartered in, or has its principal place of business in, under the laws of a foreign adversary country? No, not unless the U.S. is a foreign adversary country. It doesn't go that far, Cerberus. At the same time, he is a U.S. citizen. So I would say that this does not apply to that. And Elon could also technically divest and sell it to another American who he likes. Okay, B, an entity with respect to which a foreign person or combination of foreign persons described in subparagraph A directly or indirectly own at least a 20% stake, or C, a person subject to the direction or control of a foreign person or entity described in subparagraph A or B. Okay. Okay. Covered company. In general, the term covered company means an entity that operates directly or indirectly, including through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate, a website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application that permits a user to create an account to generate, share, and view text, images, real-time communications, or similar content. 2, has more than 1 million monthly active users with respect to at least 2 of the 3 months preceding the date on which the relevant determination of the president is made pursuant to paragraph 3B. 3, enables 1 or more users to generate or distribute content that can be viewed by other users of the website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application. And 4, enables 1 or more users to view content generated by other users of the website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology application. B, exclusion. The term covered company does not include an entity that operates a website, desktop application, mobile app, or augmented or immersive technology application whose primary purpose is to allow users to post product reviews, business reviews, or travel information reviews. A foreign adversary controlled application. The term foreign adversary controlled application means a website, desktop application, mobile application, or augmented or immersive technology that is operated directly or indirectly, including through a parent company, subsidiary, or affiliate by any of 1, ByteDance Limited, 2, TikTok, 3, a subsidiary or a successor to an entity identified in either of those first 2 sections. That is first 2 clauses is controlled by a foreign adversary, or 4, an entity owned or controlled directly or indirectly by an entity identified in clauses 1, 2, or 3, or B, a covered company that 1 is controlled by a foreign adversary, and 2, that is determined by the president to present a significant threat to the national security of the United States following the issuance of a 1, public notice proposing its determination, and 2, public report to Congress submitted to not less than 30 days before such determination, describing involved the specific national security concern involved and containing a classified annex and description of what assets would need to be divested to execute a qualified divestiture. Number 4, a foreign adversary country. This is going to be important. The term foreign adversary country means a country specifically, a country specified in Section 4872D2 of Title 10 of the United States Code. So, what would that be? So, can we look this up? Section 472 of Title 10 U.S. Code. Let's get this. Copy. And we're going to look this up real quick. This is important stuff. You have to read through these things. Okay. All right. There you go. So, Section 4872, just so that you guys know, D2 of Title 10 U.S. Code defines the covered nation as the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea, the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. So, does X qualify as a company that is controlled by North Korea, China, Russia, or Iran? No. So, I mean, look, we have to be fair here. So far, what I'm reading here so far does not point to, can they use this to take X out? I don't think so. I really don't. It doesn't seem possible from what I'm seeing here. So, I mean, let's just keep going. Internet hosting service, number 5. The term internet hosting service means a service through which storage and computing resources are provided to an individual or organization for the accommodation and maintenance of one or more websites or online services, which may include file hosting, domain name server hosting, DNS, cloud hosting, and virtual private server hosting. 6, qualified divestiture. You need Jay to read and explain it to you. Means a divestiture or similar transaction that A, the president determines through an interagency process would result in the relevant foreign adversary controlled application no longer being controlled by a foreign adversary. Or B, the president determines through an interagency. So one of the things that I like that I'm seeing here too is it doesn't talk about divesting to the U.S. government. So they can't like nationalize the company. They have to find a somebody to buy it in the U.S. B, the president determines, at least that's what I'm kind of getting at here, what I'm seeing. The president determines through an interagency process precludes the establishment or maintenance of any operational relationship between the United States operations of the relevant foreign adversary controlled application and any formerly affiliated entities that are controlled by a foreign adversary, including any cooperation with respect to the operation of a content recommendation algorithm or an agreement with respect to data sharing. Number 7, the source code. The term source code means a combination of text and characters comprising the text viewable and non-viewable of a software application, including any publishing language, programming language, protocol, or functional content, as well as any successor language or protocols. Number 8, United States. The term United States includes the territories of the United States. All right, Section 8. We're almost at the end. Wow, it wasn't really that long. Let's be honest. Judicial review. Okay, well, judicial review is important. A, right of action, a petition for review challenging this act or any action, finding or determination under this act may be filed only in the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Okay, exclusive jurisdiction, so only D.C. can handle jurisdiction of this. All right, well, whatever. Makes sense, I guess. Exclusive jurisdiction, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit shall have exclusive jurisdiction over any challenge to this act or any action finding or determination under this act. The statute of limitations, a challenge may only be brought in the case of a challenge to this act not later than 165 days after the enactment of this act, and in the case of a challenge to any action finding or determination under this act not later than 90 days after the date of such an act, finding or determination. This was passed by the House of Representatives on March 13th, 2024. So there you go. So I will be honest with you, and a lot of people will not like this. I am only a libertarian within the context of the U.S. borders. I do think that Chinese and Iranian companies, if they exist with the United States, I am totally okay with them not being able to do business in the United States. The fact of the matter is, from a national security perspective, TikTok has been doing massive damage to us. The app has been used to try to monitor U.S. service members. It has obviously been used to brainwash young people. It will be used by the Chinese to try to manipulate the election. There is no doubt about that. So there needs to be something that is done to basically eliminate that. I don't really care if it violates capitalistic principles, because the problem is that China does not participate with the United States in fair trade and capitalistic principles. China forces the United States to follow all of its rules, and the U.S. does not force Chinese corporations to follow rules that benefit the United States. So at the end of the day, there has to be something that is done with this. Now, I don't know. To me, I read the bill. I don't see anything in this bill that looks like it could be used badly. It's also a fairly short bill. It doesn't have any other bullshit that's thrown in there, which is very rare for most bills to see. I mean, unless you're a lawyer that you can see that, there isn't even that much legalese. It was actually pretty easy to follow, in my opinion, and to understand. So if a company doesn't have to do with North Korea, China, Iran, or Russia, it seems to be fine. So I really don't know what to say. I can't really say anything. And yes, my normal tendency is that when you see bipartisanship, it's usually a bad sign. I really don't know. I really don't know here. I have not read a bill like this in a long time that is this straightforward and that ultimately doesn't seem like it has any sort of traps or pitfalls. I mean, that's how it is. Do I like government regulation? No. But at the same time, I am okay with foreign governments to be monitored. So, and that's rebel scum. That's what's going on. The rule doesn't even say that these companies need to be shut down. It's that they must find divestment. So an American entity must buy these corporations. So TikTok can still exist and can stay pretty much the same if ByteDance doesn't try to nuke it, for better or for worse, if they get somebody else to buy it. If Elon were to buy it, or anybody else, then that would be fine. If an American would be off. That's what divestiture means. So when you see divestiture, that means they have to sell those resources to an American entity. So that's what the bill requires. It's not, we're going to disband it. In fact, the consequences of not following it are fines. So basically, the consequence to ByteDance would be that the U.S. government would bankrupt them with regulatory fines if they didn't follow the rules. So again, it's not nationalization. It doesn't do that, and it doesn't do any of that. So, I really don't know what else we could do. This is one of the least egregious things that I've seen. This is one of these things where I know some of you guys will push back against me, but I've read a lot of bills, especially when it comes to gun control, and there's always gotcha. Bell did get divestiture. Yeah, that did happen. Now, I would normally not like this, but again, this is a Chinese company, and it's been proven that they are using it against us, and that's just the way that it is. There's no way around it. So one of the things that you have to determine when you get into a fight is, do you die for your honor, or do you try to fight to win? And this is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about sometimes, because they're like, well, there comes to a point where a country like China does not follow the rules. They don't fight honorably. They will do anything to undermine the United States. They will take advantage of it. They're the ones that when you have a duel, you give them a dueling pistol. When you turn around to actually shoot them in the duel, they have a submachine gun pointed at you, and they didn't take any paces away. That's what you're dealing with when you deal with China. So I don't know any other way than to basically prevent their companies from doing business in the United States, to stop them. They own our pharmaceutical companies. They force American companies to basically give away all their technologies and patents when they do business in China. The U.S. doesn't do anything. So I think that this is pretty much where we are. And again, I don't know, like what can we do? What other bill can we write that would be better than this in order to kind of regulate that. And I know people hate to hear the word regulation, but this is now a national security thing. If you were forcing an American company to break apart because the government didn't like something they were saying, I would completely be opposed to that. But for foreign companies, foreign assets that have been proven to try to undermine the U.S. and try to destroy our youth, it's very difficult to go down there. So I don't know where this is going to go. This is written in such a way that it doesn't look like it could be used negatively. It really looks like if they wanted to go after another company, they would have to write another law that is much broader. So that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, it's passed. We'll see. Now, the thing that we do have to monitor is the Senate. Well, the Senate passed this bill. Yes. Well, the Senate passed a bill that will do that. G-Webs, we should have stop Chinese movies, too, and songs that's being used to warp our minds. I know that there's a sense of sarcasm there. I think social media is a little bit differently when you're dealing with that, especially the way that TikTok has been used. There's a lot of evidence that points to the fact that numbers aren't real on TikTok, that their algorithm pushes things to undermine, American youth and try to harm themselves. They push the fentanyl crisis here, which they're trying to get revenge for what happened during the opium wars and things like that. So at that point, you're dealing with a bad entity. You're dealing with an enemy of the United States legitimately. So I don't think that they should have the same rights that an American company has. That's the way I look at it. So I'm libertarian within U.S. borders. American companies get priority over everything. And if you want to, deal with foreign adversaries, that's a different story. So, I mean, on this one, you have to look at what the Senate does. Will the Senate actually change it? If the Senate changes it, then obviously there could be some issues there. It'll go back to the House and then they'll unify the bills, but we'll have to see. So keep looking through the bill. And I think it's important to, again, just read through all of this stuff. And if an American company buys it, then that's fine. We're good to go when it comes to this. But it really comes down to what power does this give to who, though? Congress and the president, because the president has to determine that a company meets the criteria under this bill. They have to give the onus of evidence that they do pose a national security threat, which I know that's always what is a national security threat? It has to be one of these entities under the code, which is specific here. So if the code changes, it's potentially this bill would have to change later on. And, I think the criteria is pretty well qualified. So, yeah, they could, G-Webs. And let's be honest, I am of the thinking that I personally think that we need to eliminate trade with China. I think that that's where we're at. When more than 80% of your pharmaceuticals that are essential come from a country that does not have your best interests in mind, that's an authoritarian regime, that is the world's largest polluter, that constantly lies about the books, that created a biological weapon that led to the pandemic, that led to everything that we're going through, there has to be a certain point where you stop accepting the bullshit from them and you determine that you have to do something because you're actually at war with this country. And as far as I'm concerned, how we are at war with China. That's the fact. The fact of the matter is that we're at war with China. And because we are so obsessed with having cheap products all the time and being able to buy whatever the hell that we want, because we're spoiled here in the United States, we are unwilling to make a sacrifice, which here is cutting off somebody that is bad for us. This is like an abusive relationship that we're dealing with China. We're addicted to the products that they give us. I'm a victim of it just as much as anything else. All this stuff is here. Look at the optics that I own. They're Chinese optics too. Look at the drones that I fly. They're developed in China too. The fact of the matter is that American companies are doing a bad job at competing against other global companies like China. And we need to basically almost force the innovation here in the United States. And China does not play by the rules. If China had the same free trade rules with the United States and didn't force American companies to follow their restrictions, which they do, then that might be a different story. Then you can have an agreement with them that's okay. But the problem is they steal our technology. They're monitoring our stuff all the time. They're undermining our youth. They've tried to affect our elections. They break rules throughout the entire world. So that's pretty much where I'm at. So we got to deal with them some way. We have to bring back companies to the United States, and we have to prioritize these things. So, there's nothing we can do about this. Like, China is a bad actor. They don't deserve the privileges that we give them. And yes, you may feel it's anti-capitalistic. We're dealing with a country that's not capitalistic anyway. So we're dealing with a country that doesn't have the same values that we do, that is actively at war with us in every other means other than kinetically. So, I'm not going to give my enemy privileges. I'm sorry. Just because my principles are good doesn't mean that I give them, I treat my enemy that way. At the end of the day, I'm going to try to defeat my enemy. And there are certain ways that you have to do it. So that's where I stand on that one. When the bill goes to the Senate, we should definitely read it. So we'll look at if there are any changes made to it. And I think that that's where we go from here. So that's what I got. This was Rolo's Rants. Man, we went 20 minutes over today. We talked about the sweet baby crisis. We talked about here with the TikTok bill. We talked about Haiti and getting prepared. This was awesome. Actually, this was one of the most fun episodes that I've had doing, since starting this new show. So I appreciate all of you. I will be back this week. I don't know if you'll see me Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I don't usually stream on those days anymore, but sometimes I go crazy. But Thursday and Friday, you can expect streams from 6 to 8 p.m. On this channel. I'll be streaming on Kick and Rumble as well when we've got gaming streams. Saturday, I'll be back for more BioShock. And next Sunday, you can stay tuned for episode 10. And we'll try to determine if we're going to split this channel and we're going to make Rolo's Rants its own thing. So take care, everybody. I appreciate all of you. And have a wonderful rest of your week. Take it easy. Oh, yeah. Gotta have the music. I don't know who Axilla is. I guess I'm flattered. Thank you. I have no idea. Buenas noches. Take care, Wayfarer. Thank you, Rebel Scum, as always, in the chat. Matt Prahoda, Greg the Goblin, and, of course, our other mod extraordinaire, Carla. We've got Apollo in the chat. Matt Prahoda, thank you for your feedback. Tony Khan's plug. G-Webs is there the whole time. We had John Crump, the world-famous John Crump, hanging out. Of course, Loquacious, Comic Misconceptions, Anthony Shaddocks, Ad Victorium, Cerberus, Confucius, JM the Elite Fan, Mike Has Bad Knees, of course, the famous CDV, Cody T, Zach Updegraff. I think we got pretty much everyone. Warsaw Patriots, Naggard Null. I think we got you all. Thank you so much for hanging out. This has been episode number 9 of Rolo's Rants. Good luck and God bless.